All right, in your notebooks, let's write adding and subtracting decimals. Now, the first thing we need to talk about before we get into adding and subtracting decimals is equivalent decimals. Now, equivalent decimals are decimals that mean the exact same thing. And we can add or take away zeros. As long as it does not change the place value of the other digits. For example, if we have this, $300, we can put a 0 in front of the decimal, and it still does not change the place value of the 3. We can also put a 0 behind the 3, because once again, it did not change the place value of the 3. We can add as many zeros as we want, once again, as long as it does not change the place value of the 3. Now, with that being said, if we have 300, can we get rid of that 0? No, these are not equal. Okay, now when you put an equal sign with a line to it, that means not equal. They are not equal because now it has changed the place value of the 3. So, as far as rules for adding and subtracting zeros, the only rule that you really need to remember when subtracting decimals is what? Owen?
Don't take the digit away from the...
No. Evan?
Never move the decimal.
Wyatt?
Line up the numbers.
Line up not the numbers, but line up the decimals. Okay, so the only rule you need to worry about when adding and subtracting decimals is making sure that you line up the decimals. For example, you can put this example down. Let's say we have 3 7/10 plus 12 and 1900. When we do that, we need to make sure that the decimals line up. Now that problem looks kind of weird, right? Now there's two different things that we can say about that. Number one, if you wanted to, you could put zeros there because, as we said, they are equivalent decimals. It means the exact same thing. The other thing, since addition is commutative, what could we also do? We can switch the order around. Okay, if you wanted to, you could put the 12 and the 1900th on top, plus the 3 and 7/10. Put that on the bottom. And then once again, if you wanted to, you could put the 0 back here. But we must make sure that the decimals line up. Now, example 2. Let's say we had 5 minus 3 and 1900. Once again, since we have a decimal, what must we make sure we do? We've got to line up the decimal. In the number 5, is there a decimal? No, but where can we put a decimal? Owen?
And 5.
Is 5 the same as 5/10? No, they're not equal. Autumn?
You put a period at the end, like at the end.
You put the decimal at the end, like the period at the end of a sentence. Okay, so if there is no decimal, you can put a decimal at the end like the period at the end of a sentence. And then, now we are a decimal, and so we can line up the decimal. And this type of problem is what's going to cause more trouble than any other type of problem, most likely. Now, with that being said, can we switch this order? Can we switch the order here? No, because subtraction is not commutative. If we go to subtract that, can we take 9 away from nothing? No. So now is where we have to get into our equivalent decimals once again. We need to put the zeros up here, because we have to take the 9 away from something. Now, it drives me nuts when I see this. What is 0 minus 9? And that's what drives me nuts. We're in 6th grade, and 0 minus 9 does not equal 9.
And you're going to have big trouble in your checkbook if you do that.
Exactly. You can't do it. You can't do 0 minus 9. So what do we have to do? We try to borrow from the 0. Can we borrow from the 0? No. So we borrow from the 5. That 5 becomes a 4. Now that 0 becomes a 10. Now we can borrow from the 10. That 10 becomes a 9. And that 0 becomes a 10. And now we would subtract. 10 minus 9 is 1. 9 minus 1 is 8. And 4 minus 3 is 1. And then you bring the decimal straight down. You haven't thinking about money now. And it would be 1 in 8100. Okay, let's do another example. Let's say we have 12 and 3400 minus 6. First of all, the 12 and the 3400, that has to go on top because that's the first number. in our number sentence, where does the 6 go? Steph? Under the what? Which one, the 1 or the 2? The 2. Because once again, there is no decimal. But like the period at the end of a sentence, we can put the decimal at the end of a number if it doesn't have a decimal. And now, we'll put these zeros in here. And now 4 minus 0 is 4. 3 minus 0 is 3. 2 minus 6, can't do it, far from the 1. That 1 becomes a 0, makes that 2 a 12. 12 minus 6 is 6. And then you bring the decimal straight down. So, if we go back to our rules, step 1, line up the decimals. What should we put as step 2? How about we say add or subtract like normal? Sound good? And then the last thing we always do when we add or subtract decimals is what? Bring the decimal straight down. Okay? Any questions? Get out your boards. Let's do this example. Three and 2,700 plus 14 and 9/10. 3 and 2,700 plus 14 and 9/10. What? I guess we're going to add it twice. Sorry about that. Okay. I thought maybe somebody, when you guys were getting me, I thought, man, tell me I wrote the exact same problem down as over here. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do, Evan, we're going to write the problem up and down, lining up the decimals. Go ahead and do that on your boards. Right? You need to write the problem up and down. And so if we keep it the way it's written here, you would have the 3 and 2,700 plus 14 and 9/10. Now if you use the commutative property, that is fine. You would have the 14 and 9/10 plus 3 and 2,700. Okay, now if we want to, since it's addition, we don't have to, but we should get in the habit. We're going to put those zeros there. And now go ahead and solve it. Check this, Colton. Check your addition. It's adding, not subtracting. And so 7 plus 0 is 7, 2 plus 9 is 11, carry the 1, 4 plus 3 is 7, plus 1 is 8, 1 plus nothing is 1. You bring the decimal straight down, and you have 18 and 1,700. Erase it. Let's do another one. Six plus, I'll put a 0 here. 6 plus 0 and 1700. Okay, once again, the first thing we're going to do is what, Brian? What's that? Write it up and down. Okay, so go ahead and write it up and down. And in the number 6, there is no decimal, so we put a period, like a decimal at the end, just like the period at the end of a sentence. And so it should look something like that. Once again, for addition, we don't have to, but it's a good idea to get in the habit of putting these zeros up there. And now go ahead and solve it. And once again, when we add them up, 0 and 7 is 7, 0 and 1 is 1, 6 and 0 is 6. Bring the decimal straight down, and we have 6 and 1700. Let's do this one. 13 and 4/10 minus 6 and 5300. 13 and 4/10 minus 6 and 5300. First thing you're going to do, Colton,
Right.
Shayna,
Right up and down.
write the problem up and down? Yep. Okay, go ahead and do that. When we do that, the 13 and 4/10 goes first. Since it's subtraction, it must go on top. Minus the 6 and 5300. Now I said with addition, we don't necessarily have to put the 0 up there. With subtraction, do we have to put the 0 up there? Absolutely. Because we must take the 3 away from something. Go ahead and solve that. Check your borrowing and subtract there. Check your subtraction. Okay, let's check it once. The first thing, and this is how I want you guys to do it, okay? Can we do 0 minus 3? No. So we have to borrow from the 4. That 4 becomes a 3, makes that 0 a 10. Now 10 minus 3 is 7. Now can we do 3 minus 5? No, so we have to borrow from the 3. That 3 becomes a 2, and now that 3 becomes a 13. 13 minus 5 is 8. 2 minus 6. Can't do it. Borrow from the, that 1 becomes a 0, makes this 2 a 12. And now 12 minus 6 is 6. We bring the decimal straight down, and we have 6 and 8700. Okay? Now, when I say do it this way, there may be some people that will have you do all the borrowing right away. I don't like that. I think that gets confusing. I just like to do it one number at a time. Okay? So borrow, subtract, and then borrow and subtract, borrow and subtract. I think it takes away the confusion. Okay? Let's do one more example real quick, and then I'll give you your assignment. 9 minus 6 and 2400. 9 minus 6 and 2400. Go ahead and do this on your own. Okay, let's check it once. First of all, we put the 9 down. There is no decimal, so we put a decimal at the end, like the period at the end of a sentence. Minus the 6 and 2400. We must put the zeros above the 2 and the 4. 0 minus 4 I can't do. I can't borrow from the 0, so I borrow from the 9. That 9 becomes an 8. That makes that 0, 10. Now we can borrow from the 10, makes it a 9, makes that 0, 10. And now 10 minus 4 is 6, 9 minus 2 is 7, 8 minus 6 is 2. Bring the decimal straight down, and you get 2 and 7600. 9 minus 2 is. Okay? Any questions? Now, the last thing that you're going to have to do for your homework, there's going to be a little bit of comparing. If we have these two numbers, when we compare decimals, the first thing we compare are the whole numbers. In that situation, the whole numbers are the same. After that, we now compare the 10. We have a 7 and we have a 9. Which is bigger, the 7 or the 9? Obviously, the 9. So since the 9 is bigger, the 12 and the 7300 is less than the 12 and the 910. Keep in mind, with the equivalent decimals, we can put a 0 back there. And now you'd have 12 and 7300 compared to 12 and 9000. Okay? So when you're comparing decimals, first compare the whole numbers. If they're the same, then you compare the 10. If they're the same, then you compare the 100. If they're the same, then you compare the 1,000. Okay? One other thing would be this. If we have 3 and 60/100, and we have 3 and 6/10. Once again, the first thing you do is compare the whole numbers. They're the same. Then you compare the 10. They're the same. Then you compare the 100. You have a 0 and nothing. Well, you can put a 0 back there, and 0 is the same as nothing, and so in this situation, they would be equal. Okay? So then you're going to have, I think there's 2 questions in which you're going to add, and then once you add them, you're going to compare your answer to another number. So, your homework. Page 21. To 26 even. (27), 28, and 30. And then 37 to 39. Okay? 8 to 26 even, 27, 28, 30, and 37 to 39. Okay? You have about 15 minutes. Should be able to get most of all this finished. Okay? Go ahead.